Let's start. Today, basically, we will be doing the retail and corporate evaluation. Some of the parts we have already done, so I will be summarizing everything together in doing this. Right? We have. Okay. Right. Hope you can hear me properly. Can you hear me properly? Okay. Right? So, is the retail and corporate credit evaluation. We have two types of lending, which is consumption lending and commercial lending. Consumption lending is the lending function where we lend for consumable items. Like when the bank's money is utilized for some purpose, the end use of money will not generate new cash flows. Like we give a housing loan, then it is a consumption lending because we construct a house, but we don't generate any income. We give a loan to buy a lease to buy a personal vehicle. So once you get the vehicle, there will not be income generation through the vehicle. But if you give a vehicle lease for commercial vehicle or buy a vehicle for renting out purpose, then it will generate money. Then it is a commercial lending, right? So when end use of money will regenerate cash or profits, that is a commercial lending. When end use of money does not generate new additional cash or profit, it is a consumption lending, right? Let's go. Okay. So these are the major types of credit. Consumer lending, that's what I told you, consumption lending. Personal loans, it can be short term to medium term. Normally, we lend up to 7 years. The maximum period would be 7 years, but it is a rare case going up to 7. Normally 3 to 4 to 5. 3, 4 is the normal level, right? Then in personal loans, normally it is unsecured basis. Maybe we take a personal guarantee. Otherwise, it is unsecured. Based on your salary income, we decide the lending. So it is purely cash flow based lending, capturing the cash flow through the salary, right? Then mortgage loans. Loans which are given for home construction, housing loans, vehicle loans, and those things are mortgage loans. You have a security, you have a tangible asset, mortgage, right? So consumer credit is purely for consumption purposes. Then we come to commercial credit. Commercial credit is the funding for business purpose. As I told, to regenerate income. We look at a normal business, we take a mortgage or some sort of a security or even clean basis, we give out money. So that money can be used for fixed asset purchases. That money can be used for working capital purposes. So anything can be done with commercial, but end use of money will regenerate money, right? That is a commercial credit. Then we have development credit, which is two parts again, micro finance and project finance, right? Development credit is intent to, it is a part of commercial. The below two are parts of commercial lending, but this is specific, right? Development credit is purely based on projected cash flows. Microfinance is the lending to the grassroots level. Any business where turnovers are less than 10 million per annum, with or without employees, it is up to 5 employees we consider as microfinance. We consider micro enterprise, where turnover is less than 10 million per annum, where employment generation is less than 5. Then it is micro enterprise. So lending to a micro enterprise, it can be for fixed assets, or it can be for working capital. That is called micro credit, right? The difference between microfinance and microcredit is microfinance, it consists of lending, savings, and micro insurance. Microcredit is only lending, right? That is for the grassroots level, very small businesses. It can be a tailor shop, it can be a grocery, it can be a appakade. So very small businesses. Then project financing is funding for larger infrastructure or commercial projects based on the projected cash flows without recourse to the sponsors and without considering the balance sheet strength of the sponsors. That is project finance. It is for huge power plant where we take the initial decision of lending purely based on the viability of the business, viability of the future projected cash flows. So lending decision mainly on the future projected cash flows, right? We consider the strengths of sponsors, but for the repayment, we don't go behind the sponsors. If the project fails, the bank or syndicate of banks can take over the project assets and give it to someone else, right? So our security would be under project finance is the project assets and revenue generating contracts, right? If the business does not generate enough money as projected, we take over everything and hand over to another party, right? That is project finance. Funding of infrastructure or commercial large-scale projects purely based on the projected cash flows without recourse to the sponsors or without considering the balance sheets or credit worthiness of the sponsors, right? There will be equity contributors who are called sponsors, and there will be banks coming together to finance a project. Then it is a syndicate of banks, right? So equity sponsors covers the equity capital, whereas the syndicate of banks covers the debt capital, right? Then we go to international trade, that is cross-border transactions. It can be imports. If you get goods into the country, that is an import, and it can be a export. When you send goods out of your country, it is an export. There are 3 types of payment ways under international trade. Firstly, it is the letter of credit. Then you have documentary credit, documentary collection. Then you have open account. Letter of credit, you have, it is the payment responsibility lies with the bank. There's a conditional agreement to pay, right? Subject to providing proper documentation, bank undertake to pay on behalf of a customer, right? Letter of credit, you have two types, LC cite and LC usance. LC cite means once you get the documents, you need to pay. LC usance means after a certain period given by the supplier, bank undertakes to pay, subject to all documents in order, right? Bank is not bothered about the goods. We are bothered about the documents. That's letter of credit. Then documentary collection, it is DA and DP. Documents on payment, documents on acceptance, DA, right? That means bank will release the documents only once bank receive the payment. That is DP. Banks get the money, then we send the money to the export other country. Only after bank receive the money only we will release the document. But DA terms, what we do, we get the bill of exchange signed from the customer, and based on the credit period given by the exporter, the other country counterparty, we release the documents for the local party. At the end of the credit period, we request the local party to pay. If he pays, we send the cash. If he does not pay, there is no liability lies with the bank under documentary collection. DADP, there is no liability attached to the bank, but documentary credit, which is the LC, bank is liable. Open account means goods comes to the country and the documents goes to the buyer himself, right? Only buyer comes to a bank to send money to the customer. OTT, we send money through a telegraphic transfer. That is the only requirement they have to come. So it is very dangerous because goods comes in, documents comes in, customer can just say, I'm not paying, right? So for an exporter, open account is the most dangerous part because there is no link between a bank or third party and the buyer, right? So that is all the credit types we have: personal credit or consumer credit, commercial credit, development credit, and international trade, right? Is that clear? Any clarification you want? Is it clear? Sanjeev, it is like this. Letter of credit, we go, if you can remember my handout, letter of credit normally happens between two parties who are unknown and unaffiliated, right? So because we don't know, we don't trust the other party, we use a third party's credit worthiness to make sure the money comes in once the goods are sent. Letter of credit is a guarantee given, conditional guarantee given by a bank, right? It happens between the unknown party normally. Then comes the documentary credit, where we know the other party, we have done some sort of transactions, we are happy about the credit worthiness. So it is just a documentary, it is only a contract. there's no comfort from a bank that bank is paying. Then when you have very good relationship with the exporter, and when you have like affiliated companies, it is V and V, right? So you can have the open account. So based on your Stafford Motors fees, it can be open accounts, because if it is affiliated company, you can have, like many corporates, they have their own companies other side of the border. So they are the exporter. So it is local company versus foreign company, same ownerships, right? So it can be open account. But saying that, even in the market, because of the expenses, like letter of credit is 0.25% of the value per quarter, right? That's the standard tariff. Because of the expense, people are moving towards this open account, but they are taking a risk. Like our Cinnamon goes on open accounts and DADP only. Currently, they are going on open accounts as well. Right. Did I answer your question, Sanjeev? Okay. Anyone else? Can I proceed then? Hope others understood. Very silent. Right. I'm going to proceed then. These are models we have. We have retail and consumer evaluation models. Right? These are consumer evaluation models. 6 C's of credit. Right? It can be 5 C's or 6 C's of credit, which we have learned. Character, which is the willingness to pay of a customer. Right? It can be done through crib reports, that is the financial character, then discussions, then market information, the character of a customer. Then the capacity is the repayment capacity, which is calculated using DSCR and interest cover ratio. That is the capacity of a customer to repay. Then capital, that means how much funds they have invested in a business. Capital, like if you can remember, this one, fixed assets, current assets, current liabilities, total assets, share capital, reserves, net worth, then term loans, total capital, right? This part, which is net worth, is called equity capital. This one is debt capital. This is the capital we are talking about. How much the owner has invested in the business, right? So why it is important? Firstly, it is the commitment. Secondly, it is the repayment strength, right? So it is capital. Then it is like if I order this, character, capital, capacity, conditions goes up. That is the macroeconomic environment. Very frequently, people mistake this condition as the condition we put forward to a customer while granting a facility. This is not those terms and conditions. This is the macroeconomic environment. The environment this business is in, whether this business can sustain any impact, right? That is the conditions. Then security, collateral, that is the second way out. If everything goes bad, is there any way we can recover our money? This is the collateral. Then the cash flow. Okay, it is enough cash. If I go back to the board, right? Character, capital, capacity, condition, collateral, and cash flow, right? This is the willingness to pay. This is ability to pay, right? This is calculated by DSCR, which is equal to PBID minus tax, right? Divided by capital plus interest plus lease rentals, right? So interest cover, which is again PBID minus tax interest, right? These two, this is from PNL, this is from PNL. PNL is done on accrual basis. Right? PNL is done on accrual basis. Whether you get your cash or not, we consider this. It does not indicate the actual cash flow of the business. It is once goods goes out of your business, then you take as a sale. Right? Here cash flow is the actual cash flow of the business. When the money will come in. PBID will not show you whether the money will come in this month or next month. But cash flow will show you when the money will come in. Is there any deficit? All those things. So that is the importance of cash flows. Otherwise, it is all the same. Right? This comes from PNL, this comes from cash flow. Cash flow gives the timing of cash. Right? So that is the importance. Is the board okay now?
No, sir. Still we can't see.
You can't. Oh, hold on. Is it clear now? Okay, right. Sorry. I'll take you through. character, capital, capacity, sorry, character, capital, capacity, condition, collateral, and cash flow. So the capacity, this one, right, is checked with DSCR calculation or interest cover ratio calculation. DSCR and PB interest cover will be calculated using PBID, profit before interest and depreciation, right? However, this PBID comes from PNL. PNL won't give you the timing of cash. If a good is sold, goods goes out of the factory or business, then it creates a debtor and you take it as a sale, right? However, money may comes after 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. PBID won't capture that. It will be captured by the cash flow, is the cash into the business and cash out to the business. So we say November, December you sell 10 million. PBID will assume that 10 million as sales. But actually you are getting your money in January and February. So you are not getting cash for November and December. So that will not be, if you just do DSCR, it will show that yes, they can pay, but actually there are no cash to pay the banks. So you need to look at the cash flows as well. That is the importance of cash, because it will give the timing of cash coming into the business and expected cash outflows, right? So that is the 6 C's of credit. Then you have different variations of this. This is called papers. PAPERS, right? First, P represent purpose. What is the purpose of this lending? Borrowing, right? Lending from our side. You put that money, thinking that prices will go up, short-term gains and those kind of gambling type things. But for investment purpose means it is for some solid reason, fixed assets or current assets, whether it is personal or commercial, right? It is not just buy and sell part, right? Then amount, how much we are ready to invest this in this business, or how much are we ready to give it to this customer. How much is not too much, right? Whether bank is ready to give 100 million or 50 million, that is the amount. Period represents how long we are giving the customer to repay, right? Expertise covers the other part, which is the character, commitment, then capabilities, business capabilities, financial skills, management skills, technical skills, those parts all come together called expertise. Repayment is how the facility is structured. Are we giving a grace period? Are we ballooning? That means initially small capital, then gradually increasing. And ability to repay, which is the DSCR calculation. All those things covers under repayment. Then the other part, which is the fallback situation, security, second way out. Basically, primary way out for any business income generating or any lending is cash flow. Through the cash flows of the business, I can pay. That is the first way out. Second way out is normally realization of security. So if you think you have to collect your cash only by the second way out, you should never lend. If you can collect from the first way out, then only you should start lending. Right? So purpose, what purpose are we lending? Amount, it can be legal, illegal situation as well. There are some businesses which we can't lend, which is restricted. Like in our country, lending for weaponry manufacturing is a prohibited case. So you can't. The amount, period, expertise, repayment, and security. This is called papers. Right? Then you have parser. That is, firstly, P represents the person. That is the character. We are looking at the person to whom we are lending. Right? We have to look at the character, connection, abilities, all those things of the person. Then amount, again the amount. That is how much is too much. Whether we are willing to put 100 million for this customer or 50 million for this customer. Then comes the repayment. There we look at the repayment ability and the structure. Security, that is the collateral. Expediency, that is the business customer suitability. Is the bank ready to acquire this kind of customer? Is the sector okay for the bank? Is this credit, is the customer's risk rating or the credit risk acceptable to the bank? That is expediency. Then the remuneration. That is, what is the margin income bank will get? It can be interest income, it can be fees, it can be commitment fees, processing fees, monitoring fees, anything. Right? Person, amount, repayment ability. Then the third part is the security and margin we have, whether it is 1% margin, 2% margin, or 5% margin. That is the risk premium we have. Then the remuneration, which is the expediency, remuneration is the margin and expediency is the bank interest in acquiring this kind of a business based on the credit guidelines and all those things. Remuneration covers the margin and fees and all those things. What is the income bank will receive by lending to this person? We say we take a customer who is into construction. So we consider his abilities, his past record, his character, all these things to finalize the person part. Then it goes to amount. Okay, this project is 200 million. How much the bank is willing to put? 100 million, 150 or 50 million. Repayment, how long we have to give? What is the DSCR based on our repayment pattern? Security, what will be the security? Is it a property or personal guarantee or vehicle mortgage? What it is? Expediency, like, okay, is construction is the bank ready to expand their exposures for the industry? Remuneration, what is the margin bank can earn from this customer? What kind of fees bank will earn? And what kind of processing fees applicable? That is the money they will bank will get. Then you have Campari. Right? Is the character. These are just variations coming from 6 C's of credit. Campari is the character, willingness to pay. Then ability to pay, which is the how much they can pay, DSCR and those things. You have to have a small correction here. This margin is not interest. It is how much we are willing to invest in this business. That is the capital. Ability is capacity. M margin is how much we are willing to invest in this business. Margin. Then purpose. Right? Is the purpose. What is the purpose of lending? Purpose of borrowing? Then the amount. How much is not too much? Earlier what we did is what is the debt equity we are willing to look at for this business? Commitment. Then amount for this project, we are ready only to give 50 million or 100 million. Right? Then repayment ability is the structure of the facility. Short term, long term, grace period, ballooning of repayment and all those things, repayment. Then I stand for second way out, which is insurance. Stroke, it is not comma, it is a bracket, it is a stroke, security collateral. Firstly, you need to write insurance. If something goes wrong and the customer dies, we should have an insurance, second way out, to come out of the debt. Then you have collateral and security. Right? Character, ability, margin, purpose, amount, repayment, and insurance. Previously, they used to ask like mainly these two models, 6 C's of credit and Campari. Alternatively, they ask about the model. Other two, they have not asked, but it is there in your syllabus. Right? What they did, please explain Campari model or 6 C's of credit. I think last paper also they have asked 5 C's of credit. Right? So we need to know these criteria. Anything? Any questions? Any question? You are silent. I am proceeding then. Then the corporate credit evaluation. Right? We have a model called MIFERT. M-I-F-E-R-T. Right? This is that. So we need to evaluate the management and operation competitiveness position of the enterprise, management and operations, industry and market, finance, the environment, risk and mitigate, and terms and conditions. That is the model for commercial credit evaluation. 6 pillars, M-I-E-F-R-T, right? Management of the company and the operation, abilities of management, strengths of management, sensitivity to the environment. So this is MIFERT. So if they want a commercial model, this is the model we have. When we go to management ability is two different. Management ability to firstly, we need to have strategic level management. Then you need to have operation level management. If you have only operation level management, business will be in the same level throughout, and any external shock will destroy the business. Strategic level management means you need to have visionary type management, which they visualize a future and work towards that. Operation level, day-to-day function they will do, but they will not have directions how to grow the business. And then the management should be sensitive to the environment or responsive to the environment. Think about Kodak. Anyone knows about Kodak? When I was young, Kodak is the best cameras we had. Kodak was the best film reels we had. They were huge in film reel market. They were the best in film reels. Then today they are nowhere because that Kodak management did not respond to the environmental call. When the technology was changing, when the market requirement changing, they didn't bother. Right? They say the creator of the digital camera was the chief engineer of Kodak. But when he took the camera to the board of directors, they were not bothered to look at it because they thought they are very solid and no one can harm us. So elephant can be put down by an ant. Similarly, the small technology destroyed that company. So it is the management, visionary or strategic and operation level. You have a strategic management, but if there is no people who can operationalize that, again you fail. Strategy is good, but no one to operationalize. You have operational people, no strategy, also not good, and strategy without operation level also not good. Then bank should have the access to the key decision makers. If we can't access the key decision makers freely, then there is a problem, because then bank will not know what is happening. We are dealing only with the low level accountants and low level staff, but top level, strategic level, we will not contact. So that is bad. Then the director's expertise in the relevant field and the knowledge in the relevant field. Otherwise, management team, the top management team relies on someone else. So it can harm the business. It's not very good. So the people who are directing should have knowledge about the business. Then the ownership structures, whether it is sole proprietor, partner, liability, or is it a hierarchical structure or matrix structure. And again, the managers who are in, like managers can be well qualified without experience or not qualified but with experience. What we need is a combination of qualification and experience. Why we need experience is, why we need this combination is, without qualification, your visualization, your exposure to the vast arena of events will be low. But without experience, your ability to tackle a practical situation will be low. So we need good managers to face in crisis situation. If a labor issue comes in, how to tackle? If you have just qualified, you are well qualified, but how to do practically, how to tackle a person practically, you don't know. Right? But you have experience, you can tackle that, but you can't give lot of solutions, alternatives, because you have not seen the world. Right? So how management will react to a crisis situation is a very key important factor in evaluating the management. What kind of experience? Like, okay, I have dealt with the recession last time. So my company survived. I headed that. That is a very good exposure. When the market was crashing, still I could manage the business. So in the next time also you will have that experience. Right? So that is management. Then market or the industry. Structure of the market. Define the market, where I'm going to sell, what kind of restrictions, regulations we have, that kind. Then the competitive position. Who are the main competitors? Do you have imports, exports? Like, do you have a larger competitor in the market or small competition? Then specific marketing arrangement, I told you, am I selling or am I going with agents, contract sales? Am I distributing, like that? Then the people who are behind the market, because market is the key. Without knowing the market, we will never be able to success. Why? Everything has to start from the knowing the market. If I don't know what is my market to sell a pen, then how can you decide on the machinery to purchase? How can you decide the workers to be employed? How can you decide how much funding you need? Everything depends on the market. So the person who are handling the market should be knowledgeable and experienced. Then you should know the market share, and you should know whether this industry will grow or not. Like industries like electronic marketplaces, it will grow in the near future. So if you are a marketing manager, you should know that it will grow. So it will be the trend. Global market, if it is applicable, global market we should have. Then, like, okay, if dumping will happen, will there be any regulations that covers on the top? Then comes the financial analysis. First, if company's historical performance, we have to look at the past, present, and project the future. Past, what we look at the past is how much volumes they have sold, what kind of products they have sold, what is the product mix they have sold, what was the turnover levels, what was the profitability levels, right? And then comes the what is today, and based on that we will project the past. If the past your GP ratio is only 10% and you project for 30%, it can't be. Then you have to have very good reason for that. Otherwise, it is just assumption, right? So you look at the past, based on the past and the present, we project. Then the banking facilities. What are the banking facilities any business has? Like I have banking facilities worth 200 million, right? Do you need more? Because over financing and under financing both are bad. So when you have more than enough banking facilities, customers tend to misuse, right? So what are the banking facilities available? Are we pari passu with other banks? That means all other banks are given security, I am not. Then we are not in the same equal level, right? What are the terms and conditions other banks has given? Pricing, repayment structures, balance outstanding, all those things you need to know. So firstly, you need to look at the past, then the current financing structure, then you go for the ratio analysis, liquidity, leverage, profitability, which we have done earlier. So it just touched upon, right? Liquidity ratios are working capital ratio, current ratio, quick ratio, like that. All those things. Inventory turnover, like these two things, inventory turnover and inventory turnover period. Inventory turnover or debtor turnover means how many times inventory converted to sales, or how many times finished good converted. How many times inventory converted to sales is inventory turnover. How many times debtors are collected per annum is debtor turnover. Inventory turnover period is how many days you take to convert inventory into sales. Debtor collection period is how many days you require to collect your creditors, is your debtor collection period. Inventory turnover, if it is high, it is good. That means very fast we convert inventory into sales. If inventory turnover period is high, it is bad. That means you take larger number of days to convert inventory into sales, right? Debtors also the same. It is inventory turnover and inventory turnover period is inversely equal. Sales to net fixed assets, that shows whether you have invested unnecessarily to fixed assets. Because by investing in fixed assets, you will not generate revenue. Revenue will be generated by investing in the current assets and current liability. Fixed asset is only facilitating you for the revenue generation. But revenue will be generated by converting inventory into sales and sales into collection. Leverage ratio represents the capital structure of the business. Right? Fixed assets, current assets, current liabilities, total assets, share capital, reserves, net worth, term loans, total capital. This is equity capital. This is debt capital. The relationship between equity capital and debt capital is called the leverage ratio. How the business has been funded, how the capital part has been long-term funding part happened. That is the leverage ratio. That's debt ratio. Out of the total assets, how much is financed by debt? Debt to tangible net worth. That means if you have revaluation reserves or goodwill, you have to take those things out to calculate this. Then interest cover ratio, fixed charge, next fixed assets to tangible net worth, all those things are leverage ratios. These two we consider, though leverage, we consider as activity ratio because it is to see how the ability of a business to repay term funding, right? Dividend payout, DSCR also same as above, right? DSCR will show you how will the debt capital be repaid, the ability of the business to repay the debt capital. Leverage, pure meaning of leverage ratio is how the capital structure of the business, debt capital and equity capital. Then you have the profitability ratio. These all ratios are done with P&L. Gross profit margin, net profit margin, all profitability ratios. Then return on equity, return on assets, those all are profitability. What is the return on equity I have invested in the business? Net income, that's the net profit to total equity. Return on asset is net income to total assets. What is the income generated per rupee invested in assets in the business? That is, that total assets consist of equity funding and debt funding both, right? Asset utilization, sales to total assets. Like the best is to have minimum assets and very high sales. That's why all the companies are going for subcontracting or leasing out, right? Or operational leases. Then you don't need to own the asset. So your assets will be low, but your turnover will be high. Like I invest 100 million in my vehicle fleet. Then what happens is your fixed assets increases. Your liability also increases. Turnover remains the same, right? But I have taken operational lease where I don't own the assets, but I use it by paying. So sales will be higher because sales is the same, but your investment in the business is low. Therefore, investment to sales, asset utilization would be higher. We say 100 million assets I have booked. So 500 million is my sales. 500 million divided by 100, 5, right? If I have not invested money on the assets, it is very small amount. It is, we can 10 million. All other things I have taken from operational lease. So there is no asset shown on the books. So 500 divided by 10 million. My investment is only 10 million, but I am earning 500 million revenue. So it is 50 times. So it is always, it should be low investment in the business, but high level of revenue. projected financial. Now we know the past, we know the present, then we project how much financing is required, because we need, when you project, we have to decide how much we need. When the loan can be repaid, that is the cash flow projection. Use of the loans, where to use the loan. You need to determine the critical and non-critical assumptions. Like what will be the turnover growth, what will be the cost growth, what will be the investments, like that. Industry projection and internal projection. Like, I can't project a business without considering the industry. If I start saying, okay, I will project a 100 million revenue from tourism industry next month, but industry is dull. So your projection is just optimistic projection. But industry says, no, you will not be able to, even the entire industry will not generate 100 million. So you have to have a balance between internal and external projection. In general, grow revenue and trace through the finance. Like all the P&L, balance sheet and cash flows, they are linked together. Can someone tell me, how do you link, at which point you link the P&L and balance sheet? From where? P&L and the balance sheet. Wake up, all are sleeping.
From the net profit?
Yes, profit links to where? How do you link the P&L and the balance sheet?
Balance sheet reserves, under reserves.
Yes, very good. Then the cash flow and the balance sheet? How do you link the cash flow and the balance sheet? Yes, Bhavin. Thank you. Cash balance, right? If I stop presenting for all others' benefit, look at this thing. P&L, turnover, direct cost, gross profit, overheads, net profit, right? Then cash, profit, brought forward, profit, carried forward, right? Cash flow, cash in, cash out, cash brought forward, cash carried forward, right? Balance sheet, you have fixed assets, current assets. Under current assets, you have cash, right? Current liabilities, total assets, share capital, reserves, net worth, term loans, total capital, right? This goes here. This one goes here. This is how these three are linked, right? Cash out, cash, different surplus. This surplus comes here, right? Net profit after dividend comes here. But P&L linked to the balance sheet through reserves, cash flow linked to the balance sheet through cash balance, right? So remember that these three are linked. You do a mistake here, it will be reflected here. You do a mistake here, it will be reflected here, right? You do a mistake here, it will be reflected here, right? Okay. Right? These are the three statements: income, P&L, cash flow, and the balance sheet. Environmental analysis, we are talking about the MEFAT still. Environmental analysis, you have to discuss the political factors, political environment, economical factors, social, that's the society, technical factors, that's the technical knowledge, legal, environment. Okay. Political factors means what is the political environment? How will the business be affected by the current political environment? Right? Like if you are into agriculture or if you are into manufacturing, at this level of political environment, you are in a positive place. If you are into imports, you are not in a good wicket with this political environment. But previous regime, if you are in the international trade, you are in a better political environment. Economic factors like our dollar has gone very high, rupee has depreciated. So that is a bad impact. Inflation goes up, then it is a bad impact to the business. Social factors, the social mentality, how the society look at it, what benefit the society will get, and what kind of thinking society will have comes under social factor. Technological, whether it is acceptable technology or do I have to spend more with technology, like that. Legal factors, is there any changes to legal framework of the country? Environmental factors, that is the environment per se, that is waste management, biodiversification, all those things. Risk assessment and mitigation. So what are the risks this business will have? Credit, if you are selling on credit, you will have credit risk. Will I get my money back? Management risk, is there a key manager, key person? So we call it key man risk. If he dies or leaves, business will have a problem. Industry or business risk, will this industry die fast or will it grow? What do you think about the soft drink industry? Now the world is turning towards natural things again. Can someone tell me what is the biggest revenue generator for Coca-Cola company? Biggest revenue generation for Coca-Cola company. It is not Coca-Cola drink. Water bottles. Thank you, Sanjeev. Great. Right? It is water. Right? There was a time Coca-Cola and Pepsi was fighting each other. Right? So they were thinking that Pepsi was eating Coca-Cola's market and Pepsi was thinking Coca-Cola is eating Pepsi market. Then they did research to find out the demand, the market has changed from these two soft drinks to water. Now, in the world, Coca-Cola is the largest seller of water, bottled water. So, that is the situation. So, industry, structural risk, whether company structure, whether the facilities given to us, given to the company is good? Like for a long-term loan, have we given a short-term, or short-term we have given a long-term? Or will the repayments be self-liquidating? That means we have captured the post-dated checks or cash flows. Reputational, there are a lot of risks. So that is risk and mitigation. Always you have to identify the risk and you have to propose the mitigations. Security and terms and conditions. Security is, collateral. We have studied security. We have what do you call stable security. Can you remember this? Stable, fluctuating, increasing, decreasing value securities. Security forever, EVER, easy to value, valuable, easy to charge, realizable. This one. Then I showed this graph. Risk increases with time. So nature of security should tally with the nature of the risk we are taking. If it is term loan, we need to have this one necessarily. If it is a short term, you can go with this one or this one. Like that, nature of risk and the nature of the security should be linked together. Right, then we have something called loan covenants. I think this is the first time I'm talking to you on this. Loan covenants are two types. Those are the conditions we put to the customer. We have positive or affirmative covenants, which customer can easily adhere to. Right? Why we put these conditions and covenants are to maintain the risk level today to the next 5 years or 6 years where we give the facility. Right? Why we put forward covenants and conditions is to maintain the risk we have evaluated for the period we have granted the facility. So we have positive or affirmative, or second one is negative covenant. Positive or affirmative covenants are covenants where the customer can adhere to without a restriction. Like covenants like you need to provide financial statements every 6 months. You need to maintain the current ratio of 1.2 times. Right? That kind of things are customer can easily provide you, adhere to. It does not restrict your business. But negative covenants are restrictive covenants which intend to restrict the operations of or decision making of the business. You can't invest more than 10 million per annum without asking the bank. You can't diversify your shareholding without informing the bank, because we have taken a big weight on the shareholding. So I don't want to let the shareholders go during this period. So it is restrictive. You can't declare dividends more than 50% of your annual profit without telling the bank. Up to 50% you can, but not more, because we want that money to be come back to the business again. That's why we put that kind of condition. So those are called restrictive covenants or negative covenants. Affirmative, good, positive ones, negative or restrictive covenants are these. We just go through it. Security forever, I just told you. This one also I told you. Value of current value of the must give sufficient margin. the best practice relate the nature of the collateral to the nature of the risk, because risk increases. So short term you can have a decreasing or fluctuating, but long term you need to have stable or increasing value security. Then you all know SWOT analysis. SWOT is an internal evaluation: strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. SWOT analysis is for internal evaluation. PEST or PEST analysis is the evaluation of the macro economy. Then Porter's 5Cs model represent the market evaluation or the industry evaluation. SWOT analysis is a framework and it is easy to perform this, and it focuses us towards the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strength, right? This is the strength. So strengths will be your resources, knowledge, resources and capabilities that can be used as a basis to develop a competitive advantage. Like you have very good source of raw material supplies, right? Or you have enough capital, you have trained staff, you have a unique product. That is a strength. And all these things should be able to control. It is under our control to have this. That is a strength. Then weakness. These are not favorable for the growth. It is the flip side of a strength, weakness. Like example given here is, you have a digitalized technology where you have invested huge capital. Because you have invested, digital technology is a key strength. But since you have invested heavily on that, you don't have working capital. So it is a weakness. To run the business, you need working capital. So your funding has eroded due to investing in the big technology. Opportunities, it is the environmentally what you have. Development in the science and technology. What is the, like, science and technology is evolving day by day. So what can we do? Like, can you use AI, artificial intelligence, to your advantage? If you ignore that and start doing the same manual thing, you will not be competitive in the market. Changes in the markets on both national and international scale. See, the number of people who will walk into a bank is gradually decreasing. But there are other convenient ways of payments and settlements. So if a bank does not talk about digitalization today, that's the end story for any bank, right? Change in government policies, trade barriers and those things, change in social patterns. Like millennials, they want everything to their bed. From the bed, they'll order anything, they will study from the bed, all of you, not me. Right? So, changing patterns, we need to know. Social pattern, mergers and joint ventures, whether companies will need to merge, joint ventures coming in, like we talk about Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and IOC merger now, joint venture. Unfulfilled customer needs. That is the key. If you want to tackle a customer, you need to find out the unfilled. What is the customer centricity? What the customer needs is a key in this. Opportunities to add value, because it is all data. Like when you walk on the road, if your mobile gets an alert, okay, this place has an offer for you, how delight would be, right? So we are talking about that kind of information technology age which the country has, which we are limited yet. Based on AI and BI, we have to look at. Threat and threats. Changes in demand, emerging in new technology. I spoke to you about what happened to Kodak. Where is Motorola today? Samsung was the only heavy machinery manufacturer. Today they have captured the mobile market. Siemens was nowhere to find. Like whether government is subsidizing, India is subsidizing their agriculture production. So it is a threat to Sri Lanka. PESTLI is the big picture, right? It is political, the current and potential influence from the political pressure, the local, national, world economic impact. Okay, even though we open up our airports, will foreigners travel? Because their economies has plunged. So their purchasing power has come down. So will they go into traveling? World economy is linked. Though we try to stand alone, but it is linked. We depend heavily on tourism. We depend heavily on garments. Like, see, with the pandemic, what happened? Lingerie market went down, right? Even Mark and Spencer had to close down their showrooms, because their lingerie market came down. So our Sri Lanka is known for lingerie exports. So that stopped, right? Social, so it is the economy. Sociological, the way we change a society. Then the technological, new and emerging technology effect on our project or organization. Legal, how local and international laws, legislation will affect. Now, yesterday, America was talking about easing out the sanctions to Iran. That means Iran oil may come into the market. So oil prices may come down again. Therefore, our price, cost of living may come down again. Like that. Environmental, national, global environmental issues, all those things. Depending on the size of the project, we look at all these things. Right? But you need to know what is PESTLI is. Right? PESTLI is this: political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental. So when you ask what is PESTLI, this is. PESTLI is used to evaluate the macroeconomic picture. SWOT is used to evaluate the internal strengths, weaknesses, and the internal specific for the company. Then Porter's 5 force model. That is one of the best tools to evaluate the market. Porter's 5 force model analyzes systematic way of analyzing the industry environment in which the firm lies. Right? This is the Porter's 5 force model. You are the center of the business. Who are your competitors? Rivalry. Do I have few large competitors or do I have several small competitors? When you have a large competitor, that competitor can eat out the small competition. It is like a shark eating small fish. But if you have small fish, you are not worried about eating out. You are worried about fighting with each other for food. But when shark comes in, they will have the food and they will eat up the small players as well. Right? I told you once about a shoe manufacturer who was interested of going negative profit for a year or two in order to wipe out the small competition. Right? So like that, what is the industry position? Rivalry among the competing firms. That you should know. Then customer side, bargaining power of the customer. If the customer can easily switch to one product to another, from one competitor to other competitor, then it is very worrying. If I am manufacturing something only for one customer or two customers, I don't have much customers, then again bank should be worried about financing this kind of. Because if the customer stops and goes to someone else, this business will collapse. The strength, bargaining power of the customer. So any price increase, you won't be able to increase the price. Like you have few customers, you have contracted the price for next 1 or 2 years. Suddenly price increases, I can't increase because he is the only customer I have and I have contracted. So if I try to increase, he will shift to another. Whether the customer can easily shift to another competitor. Similarly, suppliers. How dependent am I on my suppliers? Can I buy my raw material or services from the open market? Are there a lot of people who can supply? Or am I depending on 1 or 2? If I'm depending on 1 or 2 people, if they decided to increase price, I don't have a say because I have to depend on them. If they don't give me, I don't have money. I don't have goods or services to continue my business. So dependency on the supplier, bargaining power of the supplier is very critical. Then the substitute products. Can the customer, is there good quality substitute product? Is it reasonably priced substitute product? Right? Quality has to be good, in par with my quality, and price has to be in par with my quality, price. Then only a customer can easily go. You have a substitute, but your quality is high or low, price is very high, customers will not shift. Right? Their customer means bargaining power of customer. If you don't give me this, I will shift. This is substitute product. Instead of butter, margarine. Instead of shoes, slippers. Right? It has to be compare with the quality and the pricing. New entrants. How easy for competitor to enter to the market. Right? Look at a Kottukade. Anyone can start a Kottukade if you are deaf and you have strong arms. It's so easy. No capital investment. But if you have capital investments, economies of scale and government restrictions, then new entrants will be difficult. How easy for someone to start a bank? It is very difficult because government regulations are there, huge capital requirement is there. Like that, you will have barriers. So new entrants will be limited. So 5-force model is rivalry among the existing firms, industry competition, dependency on the customer, dependency on the supplier, substitutes, and new entrants to the market. Threat of potential new competition, right? So that is the 5-force model, which looks at the industry. This is the explanation. Easy for entry to the competitor, threat of substitute, bargaining power of suppliers, rivalry among the existing players. Rivalry, this is what I explained to you. Number of competitors are not similar in size, industry is growing at a faster pace, sell differentiated product. Supplier, number of similar suppliers, substitute products are available, easy to switch from one supplier to other is the critical factor. Buyer, switching cost of competitor, right? Number of buyers is large. Average advantages, economies of scale, capital requirement, government regulation, substitute quality, price, buyer's cost to switch. Right. That's it for me. So SWOT, then Porter's 5-force model and Pesley analysis, they had been asking this, right? So be thorough with it. Okay, any questions? I have 10-15 minutes to go. If you have any questions, I can answer you. So what we did today, we discussed 5-force, 6 C's of credit. Then we discussed papers, we discussed parser, then MIFID we discussed, then we discussed SWOT, Pesley and Porter's 5-force model. Right? This covers the entire evaluation models of consumer and commercial lending. Any questions or not clear area? Next week we don't have classes. I will not be in Colombo, so you don't have classes next week. But first week of March, we will be having classes again. So I will try to finish the syllabus by 3rd or 4th week of March, and mid of April, by mid of April, I will do papers and finish the entire thing. Right? Anything you want? If you don't have any questions, thank you for today. Okay.